welcome back to another episode of Northwest Craftsman. Recently, I just got myself one of the WEN 62721 brad nailers because it was 35 bucks on Amazon, and so I wanted to go through and show you guys how to set it up, what it looks like, how it works, and just kind of my overall impressions of it before we get started and before I get to use it on an upcoming project. All right, let's get started. Alrighty, so in the package came three separate things. You've got a little bit of oil and 2 Allen wrenches. You've got the directions themselves wrapped up in a nice plastic bag. And then you've got the air nailer, which came and looks really nice. The grip feels really good. It doesn't look really cheap all the way around. It's got a nice little clear area where you can see the nails themselves. Yeah, but per the usual, the very first step that I have on everything that I'm looking at is to read through the directions as they are. They may be crap, they may be great, but you're always going to learn something from these, whether or not you need to actually use them, and that may be the only thing that you learn. So I'm going to take a second to read through this to make sure that I'm giving you guys exactly what they recommend. Alrighty, so after reading the directions, they were pretty clear and straightforward. They gave you a bill of materials which laid out all the stuff that I already showed you is in the package. Make sure that's all there. Although it looks like the Allen wrenches aren't necessarily necessary for the setup, it just looks like they're to adjust the tool or to take it apart if you need to at some point in the future. So just be aware that that's what those are for. The oil is for the tool if you don't have a lubricated pneumatic system. A lot of pneumatic systems are lubricated. They've got a lubricator in them that looks something like this. I don't know if you guys can see this all right, but basically from your, where is it? From your compressor, you go through and you've got a lubricator as the step after you've filtered everything out. I do not have a lubricator on my air compressor because I also use it to spray my finishes, and so I only pull moisture out of my line. So you do have to use this at the very beginning, and what they say is if you don't have a lubricator, 4 or 5 drops in this on the inside. You're gonna hold it up like this, and I'll show you guys this in a second, and you're just gonna put 4 or 5 drops in here, and then you just need to make sure you're doing that periodically, making sure not to do it too much because then you're gonna get oil on your finishes, and they do call that out specifically in the manual. So one of the other things is they go through and they do a safety section for everything, and the vast majority of their safety section is actually for their power tools, which is just going through generically, don't use the tool like it's not supposed to be used, and just all your generic safety stuff. But they do have a regular brad nailer safety one, which can be summed up just like general weapon safety. And if you remember the saying, treat, never, keep, know, that's a little bit of an addition to what the US Marine Corps uses for their training, but treat, never, keep is the one that people mostly have, which is treat every weapon as though it's loaded, which in this case it means treat it like there's always nails in it, so never put your hand in front of it, never do things that you would do if there was nails ready to fire. You've got never point your weapon at anything that you don't intend to shoot, and so in this case, don't point your nailer at anything or anybody that you don't intend to put a nail in. Keep your finger straight and off the trigger at all times, and not only is this good for just tool safety in general, but also that whenever you go to a weapon, you never have an issue with that, and so straighten off the trigger at all times unless you're ready to fire. You've got keep your weapon on safe until it's ready to fire, which there is no safety on this particular tool, not that I could see. Oh, maybe there is. No, so there is no safety on this tool, so you don't really have that dedicated option for you. But if you follow all the other rules, that should be fine. And actually, if you wanted to treat it as the safety, just unplug the air and then it can't shoot any nails of it. And then also, this one I do think is pertinent. It's know, which is know your target and what lies beyond. Now, that's good generally for shooting, but for this one, it's really nice, mostly because when you're actually putting a nail or, brad nail into whatever your project is, you want to make sure that your hand isn't underneath, and so know what your target is, what you're actually putting the nail in, and then know what is behind that to make sure that you can't hit anything. If you're going into a wall, you don't want to hit power, you don't want to hit water, you don't want to hit other things. So I actually think that that pretty well sums up all of the safety that you need to know for a brad nailer and most other triggered power tools that you have. Also, I didn't mention it, but you should also always have eye safety because you are shooting something out of this, and so there is a chance that something could come flying back and you don't want to get a brad nail in your eye. Alrighty, before we get started on everything, I really wanted to go through and kind of give you the anatomy of this. So what you have here is the magazine release. This is where you're actually going to load the nails in. I kind of mentioned that earlier on. But then you can also have, this clear window right here, which tells you when you need to load more, when you've got roughly 10 all the way through 50. And this does hold, I think it's spec'd technically at 106, but it can hold over 100 nails in it. So this clear window just lets you know when you should look at refilling. You got your 1/4 inch NPT air in. That one is standard industrial fitting, I believe, based on the shape of this guy. If it didn't quite have that name right, I'll go ahead and put it at the bottom of the screen so you guys have it, because I do know that there's a bunch of different these types of fittings, but it does look like it fits my air. Then you also have the soft nose tip itself. So this soft Nomar tip should come off so that you can replace it. There it is. You've got a soft Nomar tip right here, and that is so that when you're actually pushing into your workpiece, you don't leave a dent in the surface, or it is much more difficult to leave a dent in the surface. So go ahead and snap that guy back on. You've got your depth control. Now your depth control right here, I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but basically there's this knob that spins back and forth, so you can rotate it back and forth like this, counterclockwise and counterclockwise. And you'll notice right there at the very tip, I'll put it against the paper, when I rotate it, maybe you can notice it, it changes the distance that your tip sits from the tool itself. So they do have a little tiny diagram right here that you can kind of see. I don't know if you guys can see it very well behind the trigger, but it's not really all that descriptive. They say turn it this way for one nail diagram, turn it this way for another nail diagram, and it's really difficult to pick out which one is which, because they both look like the same nail. So I'm just gonna go ahead and run a test real fast to see, once I get nails loaded into this, to see which direction you need to rotate it in order to get the nail to go deeper, because you can visibly see it changing depth when you rotate this. I don't know if you guys can, but if you're looking at it in person, you can see the tip going in either direction. So I'm going to go ahead and just empirically test that before I make a determination on which direction's which. Okay, then here at the top you also have your jam clear lever, and so what that is basically it just opens up this top so that if you get a jam that's in here and you get a nail that gets all squiggled up on the inside, you can go and you can take a pair of pliers and you can just pull it right out, and that basically just flips up with one of these quick release latches. You put it back down over the top, snaps in place, and it's good to go. On the back side here you have the exhaust port. Now the exhaust port itself can rotate around, so you can spin it in any direction you want, and you'll notice here at the top, I don't know if you guys can see it very well, but one of the top pieces, this is a solid side, this is an open side. Basically the puff of air that you're going to get coming out the back side is going to go in this direction. So if you're nailing into a workpiece like this, you may not want to puff a bunch of dust down towards the bottom. Likewise, you're not going to want it facing up towards you so you get a puff of air in the face. You're going to want to try and point it off in another direction that doesn't interfere with both your project or with you or with somebody you're working with. So this gives you the ability to rotate it around and point that exhaust basically whichever direction you want. Alrighty, so that's it. That's really the simple anatomy of this guy right here. I do really like the feel of this. It's not really that heavy, and it does have a nice soft feel to it. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get the oil in here, get some nails loaded in, and then we're going to run through and do that test, and we'll figure out the depth control when we go ahead and do that and see just how it feels for a $35 gun. As a note, when you're looking at the nails, some of the other videos that I had seen, this product did come with a set of nails or a variety pack of nails. I did not have that in my pack, so read through the directions carefully, or I went on, and on Amazon, they just had a $5 Porter cable pack, or it was $5 or something, where they have a variety of them. So I've got 2 inches, 1 1/4, and then 3/4 inches, which should be enough to get me started on my projects. And then once I know what I'm going to be using this for, I can always order more of them. Also, at the risk of being overly explicit about this, one of the things that you'll notice about these nails, and it makes sense, is that there's a geometry to them. Hold on, let me get you guys focused in. Okay, so what you'll notice is that there's actually geometry. If you're looking at them from the head, you've got the head of the nail back here, and you've got the tip of the nail, the point of the nail up at this end. Now, when you're loading it into the nailer, it seems like it would make sense, but you wanna make sure that the tip is facing the direction that's going to be going out, and the head is towards the back. All right, something else I didn't tell you guys is that there is the basic specifications at the very beginning, which are going to tell you your minimum and maximum operating pressures. And this says that you can go between 60 and 115 PSI, so I put it at about 90. and you're supposed to do all of your depth control via this. So I'm also going to do a little bit of testing on my own to figure out if I go minimum depth on this and max pressure, min pressure, and kind of figure out where I need to sit. The other piece is that this does consume about 1.8, it says 1.8 CFM at 80 PSI. So if you've got a tiny little pancake compressor and you're going to be doing a whole bunch of brad nailing, that may be an issue for you. Just keep that in mind. And I actually confirmed it for myself. It is a 1/4 inch NPT fitting that you can use for this. All right, now on to the test. For this test, I've got a couple of different things. I don't actually need this guy. I've got a 2x6 cutoff, and then I'm gonna try doing what is considered, or what I would kind of consider trim-like work, which is this little tiny offcut of a 2x4 that I have. So I'm gonna try and nail that guy in. And then I also have a cutting board cutoff. But what's special about this one is that it's just hardwood. And so I want to see, what does the penetration look like on hardwood? How does it handle hardwood? And we're just going to kind of see what that looks like. And actually, I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to use something a little bit bigger so I've got more room to operate. Wow, that was pretty smooth operation. And not loud enough. I didn't know if I was going to need hearing protection for that, but that's actually pretty quiet. So with one nail in this pine set at kind of the middle on pressure, you will note that you can peel that out, and this is what the brad looks like coming out the backside. I don't know how well you guys can see that. It's definitely not focused in, but you can see how far this brad goes in. It was not hard to pull this off, so you just be careful as you're working with this. Again, this is not intended as a structural hold. This is intended basically to hold things together while it glues. Also, if you've never used one of these before, I hadn't. I had seen the operation. There is a push that you need to do so that you've got this safety at the very front. I'm not going to put my finger in front of it, but you push that soft nib down. All of that motion right there is coming off of that safety. So theoretically, I shouldn't be able to shoot any nails out of this. Nope. Can't shoot any nails out of this unless I push it down and then actually pull the trigger. There we go. It's nailed. Okay, so let's try the hardwood and see how well that works. I just honestly don't know how it's gonna do. Well, it seemed to drive it just fine. There wasn't really an issue with it. I did see a small spark come out of there, so try it a little bit more in. Yeah, no issues at all with that. It didn't even care about the hardwood, and in fact, it actually looks exactly the same as the softwood, so it handled it without an issue. And then trying to pry that out after I've got more than just the one in there, that's actually holding pretty good. You can see it starting to come off over here, but that's a solid hold. I'm really impressed by that, and I'm really impressed by this guy. For 35 bucks, I think we found a winner. Okay, so then the last thing I'm going to test is that depth control. So right now I have it set all the way down at the bottom, so this nib is as close to the gun as possible. I'm going to go ahead and put one nail in there and see what it does. Okay, now going all the way to the other end. There we go. So it moved it about a 1/4 inch up. Okay, there we go. So if you guys can see that properly, let me zoom in for you. Alrighty, so if you look at the depth difference between these two guys right here, you can see that this higher one over here was when the nib was further away from the gun, and this one was when it was closer to the gun. And actually, looking at the overall depth on it itself, it looks like the top of that nail to that nail is that physical difference in the distance on the nub. So I think that, or on the nose, and I think that's what's actually happening is you have a physical mechanism that's pushing this in, and when you move it further away, it can't drive it as far into the wood. Now, I don't exactly know the full proper use of a brad nailer, and I need to do more research on this, but how far you're actually supposed to drive it in, my understanding up to this point is that it's just supposed to go barely past the surface. If you know what you're supposed to do with that, I would absolutely love to hear from you in the comments as I'm still doing research on this. But yes, the deeper you want it to go, you want that nib, that nose to be closer to the gun, and the higher up you want it to go, or the less deep or the more shallow you want it to go, have it further away from have the nose further away from your gun. Well guys, as I said, honestly, I'm really impressed by this guy, and for 35 bucks, I'm really excited. And it was actually $40 all in when you count the nails, but yeah, I'm really excited about how well this thing works, and I'm excited to start using it on different things. If you guys want to get one of your own for 40 bucks, I have the link to both the nails and the gun in the description down below. I am an Amazon affiliate, so I get a portion of anything that you guys spend through those links, and I really appreciate the support because it allows me to get and test out tools like this for you guys, so that if you guys wanted to get one of your own, it wouldn't be hard for you to do that, and you get to see me work it out for you. So thank you guys for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you next time, hopefully using more of this brad nailer. Have a great one.